Kiss someone in this room, sweetheart, and I'll apologize in front of everyone. Derek Sloan's voice carried across Luna Rosa with the easy cruelty of a man certain no one would challenge him. Abigail Bennett stood beside his table with a bottle of Barolo in one hand and a white service cloth in the other, wishing the marble floor would open beneath her sensible black shoes. A few drops of wine had landed near Derek's plate, barely enough to stain the linen, but he had turned the accident into a performance. Around them, Chicago's wealthiest donors sat beneath amber chandeliers, dressed in tailored suits and jeweled gowns, pretending not to stare while listening to every word. Abby felt heat rise into her cheeks. She had been a waitress long enough to survive rude customers, bad tips, broken glasses, and one memorable birthday dinner where she accidentally dropped an entire cheesecake into a man's lap. She could usually laugh at herself. Tonight was different. Derek leaned back, looking her over with a smile that never reached his eyes. Come on, look around. A woman like you couldn't get one man here to kiss her. The room changed before Abby understood why. Conversations softened. Forks stopped against china. Several guests looked toward the far end of the dining room. Vincent Romano had risen from his chair. He was impossible to miss. At 48, he stood well over 6 feet, broad through the shoulders, dressed in a black suit that fit him like it had been designed around him. Dark ink covered his hands and disappeared beneath his cuffs, climbed along one side of his neck, and marked the edge of his cheekbone. He did not hurry. He never seemed to. People simply moved when Vincent Romano decided to cross a room. Abby had worked at Luna Rosa for 8 months and had spoken to the owner exactly 7 times. He was always polite, always controlled, never familiar. Staff whispered about him when they thought no one important was listening, but Abby had learned that rumors became less useful the richer the person being discussed. Vincent stopped beside Derek's table. That's enough, he said. 2 words. Nothing louder was necessary. Derek's confidence slipped. For half a second, then returned. We're joking, Romano. Abby should have stepped away. She should have thanked Vincent, collected the bottle, and escaped into the kitchen. Instead, something inside her finally rebelled against years of apologizing for taking up too much space. She looked at Vincent. He looked back, unreadable but attentive. Abby's heart kicked hard against her ribs. Mr. Romano, she said, lowering her voice, please don't fire me for what I'm about to do. One of his eyebrows shifted slightly. That was all the permission her reckless brain needed. Abby set the bottle down, rose onto her toes, caught the front of his jacket for balance, and kissed him. It lasted barely a second. Simple, surprising, completely impossible to take back. When she stepped away, her heel caught the edge of the rug. Vincent's hand closed around her elbow before she could stumble. He steadied her without comment. Abby stared at him, horrified by her own decision. I am so sorry. For the first time since she had known him, something almost amused flickered in Vincent's eyes. Then he turned toward Derek. You wanted proof, he said quietly. You have it. No one laughed. Hours later, after the donors were gone and Luna Rosa had fallen dark, Vincent entered his private office and found a photograph centered on his desk. It showed the exact moment Abby kissed him. His gaze moved to the message written across the back. 12 years ago, you lost one woman. Ready to lose another? Marcus did not answer immediately. He stepped into Vincent's office, closed the door behind him, and placed the photograph on the desk between them. The access log says the private hallway was opened with a senior staff code, he said. Vincent's attention sharpened. Whose? Marcus looked at him for a long moment. Mine. The room seemed to narrow around that single word. That is impossible, Vincent said. I did not use it tonight. Then someone copied it. Marcus leaned forward, his voice lower now. Which means this is no longer about a rude guest, a public kiss, or some idiot trying to scare you. Abigail needs to leave Chicago. Vincent's jaw tightened. She is not being exiled because someone else made a threat. You are missing the point. No, I am refusing yours. By 9 the next morning, Abby was sitting at her kitchen table in a small apartment on the north side, staring at a cup of coffee she had reheated twice and still had not touched. A black sport utility vehicle waited outside. Another sat across the street. She had never felt so protected or so watched in her life. When Vincent arrived, he did not bring an entourage into her apartment. Only himself. Abby opened the door wearing sweatpants, fuzzy socks, and an expression that made it clear she had slept badly. "This is either extremely serious," she said, "or you have a very strange idea of brunch." Vincent almost answered the joke, but stopped himself. "I want you to take some time away from Luna Rosa." Abby's face changed. "You are firing me." "No, suspending me." "No, kidnapping me into paid vacation." "Also no." He placed an envelope on the table. "Your wages for the next 6 weeks." Abby stared at it, then pushed it back toward him. "I do not take money for work I did not do. This is not charity." "It feels like it." Vincent studied her. Most people accepted what he offered before he finished the sentence. Abby folded her arms. "I understand that you are trying to protect me, but you do not get to decide that I disappear because someone else wants me scared." Something in his expression shifted. Not anger. Recognition. "Then what do you want?" "To keep my job, to know what is happening, and to make my own choices." Vincent looked at the untouched envelope, then slid it back into his coat. "Fine." That afternoon, Abby left her apartment for groceries with security keeping several yards behind her. She had just reached the entrance of a neighborhood market when a woman in a navy coat stepped beside her. Abigail Bennett. Abby froze. The woman showed federal identification quickly, then put it away. "I only need 30 seconds. Abby glanced toward the security car. "You have 15. The woman almost smiled. "Smart." Then her tone changed. "Ask Vincent Romano what happened the last time he let himself love someone." Abby's stomach dropped. Before she could respond, the woman walked away and disappeared into the crowd. Abby did not keep the meeting secret. Less than an hour later, she stood in Vincent's office and told him every word. He listened without interrupting. When she repeated the final sentence, his hand went still beside a glass of water. Abby waited. Who was she talking about? Vincent turned toward the window. For several seconds, he said nothing. Then he removed his watch and set it carefully on the desk. On the inside of his wrist, beneath the place where the leather band usually rested, was a date inked in small black numbers. Abby looked at it. What happened that day? Vincent's eyes remained on the city below. That, he said quietly, was the day I learned what loving someone can cost. The next morning, Vincent moved Abby's shift to a private dining room on the second floor of Luna Rosa, far from the main entrance and close to the office hallway. He called it temporary. Abby called it suspiciously expensive babysitting. By noon, she discovered the room had been cleared of tables and replaced with padded mats. Absolutely not, she said when she saw them. Vincent stood near the windows with his sleeves rolled above his wrists. You need to learn how to protect yourself. Abby looked down at her soft black work shoes, then at him. I once lost a fight with a revolving door. I heard. She stared. Who told you? Paul. I trusted Paul. Vincent handed her a pair of training gloves. Abby put them on, studied her hands, then frowned. Why does this feel wrong? He glanced at her wrists. Because you put them on the wrong hands. She closed her eyes. Excellent. I am already intimidating. The corner of his mouth lifted before he turned away. For the next half hour, he showed her how to keep her balance, how to create distance, and how to use her voice before panic stole it. Vincent never mocked her when she missed a step. He simply adjusted his position and made her try again. That patience surprised her more than his strength. At one point, Abby stepped backward, caught her heel on the edge of the mat, and grabbed his forearm to keep herself upright. Vincent caught her other hand before she fell. They ended up closer than either expected. Abby could see the fine lines beside his eyes, the faded edge of ink disappearing beneath his collar, the tiny scar near his eyebrow she had never noticed before. Neither moved. You are supposed to let go now, she said softly. You grabbed me first. Technical detail. His gaze dropped briefly to her hands, then returned to her face. You are improving. That sounded almost encouraging. Do not get used to it. She smiled. The moment broke when the door opened. Marcus entered, followed by a woman Abby had never seen. She was tall, polished, and dressed in a cream suit that probably cost more than Abby's monthly rent. Dark red hair rested neatly against her shoulders. She looked from Vincent to Abby, then to their joined hands. Abby released him so quickly that one glove slipped off and landed on the floor. The woman raised one eyebrow. Interesting morning. Vincent's posture changed. Not colder exactly. More formal. Claire. Abby recognized the name immediately. Claire DeLuca. She had heard enough staff gossip to know there had been quiet talk about an alliance between the Romano and DeLuca families. Some people had even called Claire the woman Vincent should marry. Abby suddenly became very aware of her wrinkled uniform and mismatched training gloves. Claire walked toward her and extended a hand. You must be Abigail. Abby is fine. Good. Claire is fine too. Abby hesitated before taking her hand. Claire looked amused. Relax. I am not here to steal your man. Abby nearly choked. He is not my man. Claire glanced at Vincent. Of course. Vincent rubbed a hand across his jaw. Why are you here? The humor vanished from Claire's face. She placed a folder on the nearest table. Inside were photographs of markings, shipping labels, and coded notes. Because someone wants you to think my family is threatening her. Vincent looked through the pages. And you are saying they are not. I am saying whoever is doing this knows enough about both of us to imitate old DeLuca's signals. Marcus stepped closer. That narrows the list. Claire shook her head. No, it makes it worse. She turned toward Vincent. The person behind. This is not studying you from the outside. Her eyes shifted briefly to Abby. They are close enough to know what frightens you, what you remember, and now, who you care about. By Friday evening, Luna Rosa had been transformed for a private negotiation between the Romano and DeLuca families, and Abby found herself serving a room where every smile seemed to carry a second meaning. She had asked Vincent twice whether she should be working that night. Both times, he had given the same answer. Only if you want to. That mattered more than she expected. No order. No quiet decision made on her behalf. Just a choice. So she stayed. The private dining room glowed beneath low amber lights, polished silver catching small flashes whenever someone moved. Claire sat near the center of the table, calm and alert, while Marcus remained at Vincent's right side. Abby moved between them with a tray balanced against her palm, pretending not to notice how often Vincent's attention found her across the room. Near dessert, she placed a small cup beside him. Vincent looked down. No sugar. Abby smiled. One splash of cream. You make the same face every time someone brings it wrong. His fingers paused near the cup. You noticed. Occupational hazard. A few minutes later, Vincent stood to answer a quiet phone call near the windows. When he returned, his tie had shifted slightly beneath his collar. Abby noticed before she could stop herself. Hold still. Vincent did. She reached up and straightened the knot with 2 careful movements. The room around them seemed to fade for half a second. His gaze stayed on her face. Abby became aware of how close she was and stepped back quickly. There. Now you look appropriately terrifying again. Claire hid a smile behind her water glass. Marcus did not smile at all. Later, someone poured Abby a taste of an expensive red wine after the agreement reached its first peaceful point. She took one sip, considered it seriously, then whispered to Vincent, "This tastes like a mortgage." His shoulders moved with a quiet laugh before he could hide it. Abby stared at him. There it is. What? Proof that you were human. Marcus watched from across the room, his expression unreadable. The dinner ended shortly before midnight. Claire left through the front entrance with her security team, while Vincent insisted Abby use the private garage below the restaurant. She was halfway to the black sport utility vehicle when the overhead lights went dark. Emergency lamps flickered on a second later, bathing the concrete level in weak red light. Paul immediately moved closer to Abby. Vincent stepped between her and the open lane without thinking. Stay behind me. A vehicle near the far exit started its engine. Another rolled slowly into the opposite entrance, blocking the usual route out. No one approached. No one shouted. That made the situation worse. It felt planned. Vincent guided Abby toward a service corridor while Paul spoke rapidly into his radio. Abby kept pace, forcing herself not to panic. Is this the part where I regret making fun of your security? Not yet. Comforting. They reached the stairwell door just as a voice crackled through one of the abandoned garage speakers. North Passage is clear. Take the king home. Vincent stopped. Paul stopped too. Abby looked between them. What? Vincent's face had gone completely still. The speaker went silent. He turned toward Paul. Who uses that phrase? Paul looked unsettled. Nobody anymore. Abby felt cold despite the warm garage air. Vincent's eyes moved toward the dark exit. That was an old extraction code, he said. From which team? Abby asked. Paul answered before Vincent could. The security unit Mr. Romano shut down 12 years ago. Vincent looked at Abby, and this time there was no trace of humor in his face. The week Caroline died. The drive away from Luna Rosa passed in near silence, with Abby sitting beside Vincent in the back seat, while city lights slipped across the windows in broken bands of gold and blue. Paul took a different route every few blocks, checking mirrors more often than seemed normal, but no one followed them. Vincent had insisted they go to a secure apartment several miles from the restaurant until his team understood who had used the old code. Abby had stopped arguing. For once, she could tell the difference between being controlled and being protected. Inside the apartment, Vincent removed his jacket and rolled his sleeves higher while making a phone call near the kitchen. Abby noticed a shallow scrape across the back of his hand, probably from the metal stairwell door when he had pulled it open too quickly. Sit down, she said when he ended the call. Vincent looked at her. I am fine. That is what every man says right before making a very stupid decision. You have a lot of opinions for someone who kissed her employer during a charity dinner. Abby opened a small first aid kit from the cabinet. And yet here we are. He sat. She cleaned the scrape carefully, trying not to notice how still he became when she touched his hand. His fingers were large, rougher than she expected, marked with old ink and years she knew almost nothing about. You always do that, she said. Do what? Act like nothing gets to you. Vincent watched her without answering. Abby wrapped a small bandage across the scrape. I am not asking you to tell me everything. I just wish you would stop deciding that being afraid is the same thing as being weak. Something changed behind his eyes. You think I am afraid? I think you were terrified in that garage. He looked toward the dark window. Not for myself. Abby's hands went still. The room suddenly felt smaller. Vincent turned back to her, and for several seconds neither of them moved. He lifted one hand as if he meant to touch her face, then stopped inches away. Abby could hear the refrigerator humming behind them. She leaned closer without thinking. Vincent did too. Then he pulled back. The distance felt colder than the night outside. You should hate me for stopping, he said. Abby swallowed. I hate that you think fear gets to make my choices. His expression tightened, but before he could answer, the apartment buzzer sounded. Marcus arrived 10 minutes later carrying a folder. He placed it on the coffee table and opened it to reveal parking records, access logs, and photographs from the garage. Claire's people were near Luna Rosa tonight, he said. Vincent studied the pages. How near? Close enough. Abby sat beside them, listening. 1. Photograph showed a DeLuca vehicle entering a nearby garage at 11:42. Another page listed a security access request connected to the same time. Marcus tapped it. That is your answer. Vincent's jaw hardened. Abby stared at the timestamp. Something bothered her. She looked at Marcus, then back at the page. That cannot be right. Both men turned toward her. Abby pointed at the time. 11:42. Marcus nodded. Yes. Abby's pulse quickened. You were still at Luna Rosa then. Marcus went very still. Abby met Vincent's eyes. I know because I served you coffee at 11:45. For several seconds, no one spoke. Marcus looked at Abby as if she had just moved a piece on a board he had assumed only two people were playing. Vincent did not look at him. He kept his eyes on the timestamp beneath Abby's finger. "You are certain?" he asked. Abby felt the weight of the question. "I brought Marcus coffee after dessert. Black, no sugar. He told me it was too hot, so I left it near his right hand and came back with the check folder for table 3. Marcus gave a quiet breath. "You remember all that?" Abby glanced at him. "I remember people. It is part of the job." Vincent reached for his phone. "Paul, pull the dining room footage from 11:30 until midnight. Do not send it to anyone else." Marcus leaned back against the couch. "Vincent, a timestamp can be wrong. So can evidence." The words were not loud, but Abby saw something tighten in Marcus's face. He recovered quickly. "You are trusting a waitress over 30 years of history." Abby's stomach dropped. Vincent finally looked at him. "I am checking a fact." Marcus's mouth flattened. "That is not what this is." Vincent stood. "Then tell me what it is." Marcus did not answer. His phone buzzed. He looked at the screen, then slipped it into his pocket. "I need to make a call." He walked toward the door. Vincent did not stop him. Abby waited until it closed. "Did I just ruin a 30-year friendship over coffee?" No, Vincent's gaze stayed on the door. "If a cup of coffee can ruin it, something else already did." Paul called 3 minutes later. Vincent put the phone on speaker. The security footage showed Marcus seated inside Luna Rosa at 11:45, exactly where Abby remembered him. More than that, the digital record attached to the DeLuca vehicle had been added to the system after midnight. Someone had created a false trail. Abby slowly sat down. Vincent's hand closed around the back of a chair. "Who had access to edit the record?" "3 people," Paul said. "You, me, and Marcus." Vincent ended the call. Abby watched him cross to the window. He did not curse. He did not throw anything. He simply stood there, motionless enough to make the apartment feel tense around him. "You trusted him," she said, "since we were teenagers. Maybe there is an explanation." Vincent looked back at her. "I hope there is." By sunrise, there was no sign of Marcus. His apartment was empty. His office had been cleared of personal items, but no money was missing, no accounts had been touched, and none of Vincent's private files appeared disturbed. Paul arrived with a list of everything Marcus had left behind. Abby scanned it while Vincent stood near the kitchen counter. "If he wanted to betray you for money, why leave everything?" she asked. Vincent did not answer. Paul placed one final sheet on the table. "There is one thing missing." Vincent looked down. The folder containing the proposed Romano and DeLuca alliance agreement was gone. Abby felt a chill move through her. Vincent's phone rang. Unknown number. He answered without hesitation. "Marcus." A pause. Then Marcus's voice came through, calm and tired. "You are going to hate me." Vincent's eyes hardened. Marcus continued. "But you are going to be alive long enough to do it." Vincent did not move. The phone rested against his ear while morning lights spread across the apartment windows, pale and cold over the city. Abby watched his face carefully, searching for some crack in the control he wore like armor. "Where are you?" Vincent asked. Marcus gave a quiet laugh, without humor. "Still asking the wrong question." "Then give me the right one." A pause followed. "Ask why I took the alliance agreement." Vincent's fingers tightened around the phone. Abby stood near the table, close enough to hear only fragments of Marcus's voice. "You wanted me to marry Claire," Vincent said. "I wanted you alive." The answer landed differently. Not greedy, not triumphant, tired. Marcus told him to come alone to an old private club near the river, a place they had used years ago for business meetings before Luna Rosa existed. Vincent ended the call and reached for his coat. Abby stepped in front of him. "You are not going alone." "He asked me to." "That is exactly why you should not." Vincent looked at her. "Abigail, do not use the full name. It means you are about to make a terrible decision politely." Despite everything, something flickered in his eyes. Then it disappeared. "Stay with Paul." "Fine, but come back." Vincent's gaze held hers for one quiet second too long. "I intend to." The club was nearly empty when Vincent arrived. Marcus stood beside a long window overlooking the river, the Alliance folder resting on a table between them. He looked older than he had the night before. "You forged the DeLuca evidence," Vincent said. Marcus did not deny it. "I arranged the messages. The photograph. The old codes." Vincent stared at him. "Caroline too?" Marcus's face tightened. "No. I used what happened to her because I knew it was the one thing you would never ignore." The admission seemed to change the air. "Why?" Vincent asked. Marcus looked toward the water. "Because my brother died in a war started by two men who confused love with judgment. One father protected a son. Another protected a daughter. Everyone paid for it." He turned back. "I watched you become careful after Caroline. Cold, maybe, but alive. Then Abigail kissed you in front of a room full of people, and suddenly you were making exceptions." "She is not an exception." Marcus almost smiled. "That is the problem." He tapped the folder. "CL." Vincent's voice changed at once. Not louder, not colder, simply stripped of everything unnecessary. "Let me hear her." The unfamiliar man on the phone waited a beat, then Abby came back on the line. "I am okay." Vincent closed his eyes for half a second. "Are you hurt?" "No, where are you?" A quiet rustle, then the other voice returned. "Enough." Marcus stood across from Vincent, all color gone from his face. The caller named 3 business routes Vincent controlled, 2 warehouse contracts, and a seat on a private council that decided how several families divided territory. The demands were not random. They were designed to weaken him without creating immediate chaos. Whoever had taken Abby understood structure. "You signed the transfers," the man said, "and she walks away." Marcus shook his head sharply. Vincent ignored him. "Send the papers." "Vincent," Marcus said the moment the call ended, "they will not honor it." "Maybe. You cannot hand them half your leverage." Vincent looked at him. "Watch me." The documents arrived within minutes. Lawyers were pulled into a secure call. Marcus argued. Vincent listened. Then he signed every page. No speech. No bargain. No attempt to prove he cared less than he did. Marcus stared at the final signature as if it frightened him more than any threat could have. "You build all of this for 25 years. Vincent capped the pen. "Then I can build again." Across the city, Abby sat inside a locked office at an old event center near the river. She recognized the place within 10 minutes. Luna Rosa had catered weddings there years earlier, and Abby had worked 3 of them. She remembered the service kitchen, the freight elevator, the narrow hallway behind the ballroom, and the fire alarm panel beside the coat room. That memory was the first thing all day that made her feel less helpless. The men guarding her did not know she had been there before. They spoke outside the door as if she were furniture. Abby stayed near the wall, listening. One of them laughed softly. "Romano signed already." Another answered, "Good. Then he comes here thinking he gets her back." Abby's stomach tightened. "And after that?" The first man lowered his voice, but not enough. "After that, there is no Romano problem." Abby stopped breathing for a second. Then she forced herself to think. Panic wanted to make the room smaller. She refused to let it. She looked at the ceiling vent, the old thermostat, the maintenance map beside the door. Nothing useful. Then her eyes moved to the small serving pass in the wall, the kind used when the room had been rented as a bridal suite. Abby remembered what was behind it. A short service corridor. A utility closet. The alarm controls. She stood, crossed quietly to the pass, and tested the latch. It moved. Barely. Outside, one of the men said, "He will be here in 20 minutes." Abby looked at the opening, then at the chair beside the desk. She dragged it silently into place, climbed up, and whispered to herself, "Okay, Bennett. Try not to lose a fight with the building this time." Then she pushed the latch open. Abby squeezed through the narrow service opening and landed awkwardly in the corridor on the other side, catching herself against the wall before her shoes could make too much noise. For one ridiculous second, she thought about how Vincent would probably tell her that climbing through a serving hatch had not been part of her self-defense lessons. Then voices shifted behind the locked office door, and the humor vanished. She moved quickly toward the utility closet she remembered from years ago. The old event center had changed less than she expected. Same faded exit signs. Same gray carpet. Same metal panel beside the coat room. She opened the fire alarm cabinet and stared at the controls. "Please be easier than the gloves," she whispered. A red lever sat beneath a clear plastic cover. Abby pulled it. Bells exploded through the building. Emergency lights flashed. Somewhere down the hall, doors unlocked automatically. Men shouted behind her. Abby ran toward the service kitchen, not because she expected to outrun anyone, but because she remembered 2 exits there. At the same time, Vincent's car stopped outside the event center. Marcus had followed despite being told not to. Vincent stepped out and looked at him. "You stay here." Marcus shook his head. "This began because of me. That does not give you permission to make it worse." "No, it gives me responsibility." Before Vincent could answer, the alarm began ringing inside the building. Both men looked toward the entrance. Vincent's phone buzzed with a security update from Paul. Several doors had opened automatically. Vincent's expression changed. "That is Abby." Marcus stared at him. "How do you know?" "Because she does not wait quietly when someone tells her what her choices are." Inside, Abby reached the service kitchen and nearly laughed when she saw the familiar stainless steel prep tables. She slipped behind a storage rack as 2 men hurried past toward the ballroom. Neither looked her way. She moved toward the loading corridor, but another figure stepped from the opposite end. Abby froze. It was the man who had spoken on the phone. He looked more annoyed than angry. "You were supposed to stay in the room." Abby backed toward the kitchen doors. "People keep saying that to me." He glanced toward the alarms. "You made this complicated." "I have been told that before too." Footsteps sounded from the far hallway. Vincent appeared first, with Marcus several paces behind him. Abby's breath caught. The man between them turned, suddenly uncertain. He had expected Vincent to arrive desperate and isolated. He had not expected the building to be open, Abby to be free, or Marcus to be standing beside him. Marcus spoke first. "This was never the agreement." The man gave him a hard look. "The agreement changed. Then you never understood it." Marcus stepped forward, positioning himself between the man and Abby without touching anyone. "It is over." For the first time, Vincent looked at Marcus not as a traitor, but as someone making a choice that would cost him something. The tension stretched until distant sirens became audible outside. The man looked toward the exit, calculated his chances, then moved away without another word. Vincent crossed the space between himself and Abby. He stopped just short of her, as if afraid touching her might confirm how close he had come to losing her. Abby solved that problem by stepping into him. His arms closed around her immediately. No hesitation, no restraint. She felt his breath leave slowly against her hair. "I told you I could make my own choices," she said. Vincent held her a little tighter. "You were right." Across the room, Marcus lowered his eyes. The relief lasted only seconds. Paul entered through the side corridor carrying Vincent's phone. His face was tense. "There is something you need to see." Vincent took it. On the screen was a message from one of the legal teams handling the transfers. The signed documents were already being processed. Abby looked at him. "Can you stop them?" Vincent read the message once more. "Maybe." Marcus shook his head. "Not without exposing everything." Vincent looked from the phone to Abby, then to the man he had trusted for 30 years. For the first time, saving her had not ended the crisis. It had only revealed the price. Several months later, Chicago had stopped whispering about the night at the event center, but the consequences were still moving through courtrooms, boardrooms, and private meetings where old promises were being rewritten. Marcus Hale entered a formal plea agreement that covered conspiracy, unlawful confinement, falsified records, and the financial pressure campaign he had helped create. He did not ask Vincent to protect him from the outcome. He did not ask for forgiveness either. The last time they saw each other before sentencing, Marcus stood across a quiet conference table and said, "I thought keeping you closed off was the same as keeping you alive." Vincent studied him for a long moment. "I know." Marcus looked almost relieved until Vincent added, that does not make what you did smaller. Claire DeLuca became the unexpected bridge between families that had spent years measuring peace by what they could gain from it. She refused the marriage arrangement completely and forced both sides to negotiate without using people as bargaining pieces. The settlement that followed was slower, less dramatic, and far more durable. Vincent surrendered several old territories, closed businesses that existed only because fear had kept them profitable, and moved Luna Rosa along with his legitimate companies into a separate legal structure. People around him called it weakness. Vincent ignored them. For the first time in his adult life, he was building something he would not be ashamed to leave behind. Abby watched all of it without pretending she had become comfortable with his world. She still hated expensive wine, still misplaced her keys at least twice a week, and still managed to bump into the corner of the same kitchen counter in her apartment as if it personally disliked her. But something inside her had changed. She had enrolled in evening management classes at a community college and started taking business courses 3 nights a week. When Vincent offered to cover tuition, she shook her head. "You can buy me dinner. That is all. Maybe dessert if you behave." "I usually do." Abby gave him a look. That is an ambitious interpretation of history. Their relationship had become warmer without becoming easy. Vincent learned to ask before solving her problems. Abby learned that accepting help did not mean surrendering control. Some nights they talked until the restaurant staff went home. Other nights they sat across from each other with coffee and did not need to fill every quiet moment. Then, one rainy Thursday, Abby handed Vincent a sealed envelope in his office. Inside was her resignation from Luna Rosa. He read it once. His face did not reveal much, but his thumb stayed pressed against the bottom edge of the page. "You are leaving. For a while." "Why?" Abby took a breath. "Because I need to know who I am when I am not your waitress. Not the girl someone threatened. Not the woman everyone connects to Vincent Romano." He looked at her, and she could see the instinct to argue arrive before he buried it. "Where will you go?" "Nowhere dramatic. I am finishing the semester. Working part-time at a small bakery near campus. Trying to build something that is mine." Vincent folded the resignation carefully. "Then you should." Abby's eyes softened. "You are not going to stop me. You asked me to stop making your choices." He came around the desk, stopping a few feet away. "I listened." She smiled, though her eyes shone. "That might be the most romantic thing you have ever said." Vincent almost reached for her. Almost. Then he let his hand fall. Abby left Luna Rosa that night, carrying one small box of belongings and a future that belonged to her. Vincent watched from the window until her cab disappeared into the rain. Weeks passed, then months. And on a quiet night, near closing time, the hostess came upstairs with an expression Vincent had not seen before. "There is someone downstairs asking for you." He looked up from his desk. "Who?" The hostess smiled. "She said you should already know." Vincent found Abby at the same table where everything had started months earlier. Luna Rosa was nearly empty now, the chandeliers dimmed, the last servers finishing quietly in the kitchen. Abby stood when he approached. She looked the same and not the same. Her hair was pulled back loosely, her coat still damp from the evening rain, and there was a confidence in the way she held herself that had not been there when she first carried wine across this room. Vincent stopped a few feet away. "You came back." Abby smiled. "Very observant." "I have been practicing." She laughed softly, and the sound did something to his face that no threat or negotiation ever could. He glanced toward the empty dining room. "How is school?" "Good. Hard. I accidentally submitted the wrong spreadsheet last week and spent an hour convinced I had destroyed my academic future." "Did you?" "No. Apparently professors are less dramatic than I am." Vincent pulled out the chair across from her, but Abby did not sit. "I did not come here to talk about spreadsheets." He waited. Months ago, he would have filled that silence with a solution. Now he let it belong to her. Abby looked around the restaurant. "I needed time away because I wanted to know whether what I felt was real or whether it came from everything we survived." Vincent's expression changed slightly, and it got worse. His brow lifted. Worse, I missed you when nothing dangerous was happening. The faintest smile appeared. Abby stepped closer. I missed your terrible coffee. I missed the way you pretend not to like dessert and then steal half of mine. I even missed you staring at every exit like the building personally offended you. Vincent looked down for a moment, then back at her. I missed you too. The words were simple, but Abby heard what they cost him. She moved closer until only a small space remained between them. You have gotten better at letting people make their own choices. I am still learning. What about making the first move? Vincent's eyes warmed. That may take longer. Abby shook her head. Unbelievable. Then she rose onto her toes and kissed him. It was gentle, brief, and certain. The first time she had kissed him, she had been angry, embarrassed, and trying to prove that someone else's cruelty did not define her. This time she had nothing to prove. Vincent's hands settled carefully at her waist, and when she pulled back, he did not let fear create distance between them. Your turn, she whispered. So he kissed her forehead and rested his brow against hers. Stay, he said. Abby smiled. That sounds dangerously close to an order. Vincent corrected himself. Will you stay? Her eyes filled, but she was still smiling. Yes. 1 year later, Abby finished her management program and became a partner in a small neighborhood bakery she had helped expand into a second location. Vincent invested only after she presented him with a full business plan and made him sit through every page. Claire remained a trusted ally. Marcus served his sentence and later sent Vincent one letter, not asking forgiveness, only admitting that fear had made him confuse control with loyalty. Vincent kept the letter but never used it as an excuse. He changed slowly. Honestly, he stopped treating love like a weakness that needed to be hidden. Abby stopped measuring her worth by the eyes of people who had never bothered to know her. Some evenings, after the bakery closed, she still came to Luna Rosa and found Vincent at the old table waiting with 2 cups of coffee. Years earlier, he had believed loving someone meant giving the world away to hurt him. Abby taught him something harder and better. Loving someone meant trusting them enough to stand beside you by choice. And every time she took his hand across that table, Vincent remembered the impossible waitress who had kissed him first and changed the life he thought was already finished.